All right, folks. We are looking to get started here at about 1 minute after the hour, just to give anybody who's running from one meeting to another a second or two to sit back down and get everything squared away here. So we'll get going at 12:01. We've got a great presentation today, and definitely wanting to get you out by the top of the hour here. So thanks for spending your lunchtime with us. And hey, look at that. We killed enough time. It is 12:01. My name is Mike Wagner. I am the Community Development Manager here at Alliant Energy. And before we get too deep into our talk today, need to let you know that we're recording this presentation for playback later. I want to thank you for spending your lunch hour with us for this live webinar to get a better understanding of two energy efficiency programs we have in Iowa: feasibility studies and retro commissioning studies. Just also too, for a heads up, you may see retro commissioning studies abbreviated in some slides that we're going to show you today as RCX. So RCX, retro commissioning, both the same thing. So today we'll discuss the benefits of both programs and help you start to think about how these options could start working for you. We'll also help you find some information about the program on our website to help you get started. If you have any questions during the presentation today, just put it in the chat box during the presentation and we'll try to answer those as they pop up. If there's anything we can't answer, we'll include those answers in the follow-up email that'll come out a little bit after this webinar. That email will also have a link to the recording so that you can use it or share it with some of your coworkers if they were not able to attend today. So we're going to get started at the top of the hour. So let's introduce our experts. Nick Ludwig, he's our customer solutions specialist here at Alliant Energy. Peter Griffin is one of our key account managers. And Andrew Wiegand is an engineering lead with one of our contractors, Michael's Energy. So Nick, let's get started with you to start talking about these programs.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike. As we jump into today's presentation, want to really start with sort of the baseline as to why we're all here. And everyone involved really should have the same goal, including us at Alliant Energy. As part of our energy efficiency portfolio, our goal is to eliminate energy waste. These two studies that we'll talk about today, feasibility studies and retro commissioning studies, are one means toward that goal as we help our customers in evaluating their systems, either as you're looking to upgrade, make an investment in your equipment, or of course, make sure that you're using the equipment that you already have efficiently. So from Alliant Energy's perspective, it really is important for us to help our customers try to eliminate energy waste, as it is immensely beneficial for grid resiliency and making sure that we can deliver power to our customers in a way that's efficient for all. For our customers, it's no surprise that eliminating energy waste is extraordinarily beneficial, obviously, toward your bottom line and making sure that your sustainability goals and using the energy that you have efficiently is top of mind. So when we look at these two types of studies, feasibility studies, retro commissioning studies, put them side by side here just to get a sense as to, of course, how they're different and what they could potentially accomplish. I'll start today talking a bit about feasibility studies, and then I'll hand it over to Andrew to discuss retro commissioning studies. Looking at them side by side, a feasibility study is really sort of the next step after an audit when you're evaluating a specific system or piece of equipment, thinking about honing in more specifically than just what an audit might provide. It's an investment grade study to evaluate the efficiency of a specific system as you're thinking about potential upgrade or changes. So it helps you inform decisions around those changes. Whereas a retro commissioning study, you can think of it as evaluating really the equipment that you already have and the controls associated, digital controls associated with that system. And the goal there, of course, is analyzing the efficiency and the settings to make sure that you've got all the right controls set to the correct points to ensure that the system is going to operate as efficiently as possible. So with that in mind, wanted to start by saying, if you weren't already aware, the best place to start before either of these is with an energy audit. And hopefully your facility has already done this, and maybe that's the case. but you'll want to look back to see the last time that you've conducted an energy audit with Alliant Energy. Maybe it was with Michael's Energy. Customers are eligible to have an energy audit through Alliant Energy once every 5 years. So if it's been a while, maybe there have been changes in your facility, maybe personnel have switched around, make sure to reach out to your key account manager, see the last time you've had an energy audit, and if you're eligible, we'd love to send an energy expert to your facility. They'll do one of the two following types of audits. A level 1 audit is really sort of a walkthrough analysis. It's for the mid-sized facilities, approximately 20,000, 50,000 square feet. And then a level 2 audit is for the more complex facility, think manufacturing, industrial, et cetera, where there's a bit more analysis done, energy savings analysis. Large commercial facilities, usually 50,000 square feet and above. So before taking a look at either a feasibility study or a retro commissioning study, we would first want to look and make sure you're up to date on an energy audit. And if you're eligible, we'll start there. Really a walk before you run type of thing. As we look at the details of a feasibility study, once you've completed an energy audit, this is where we can take a look at a specific system or set of systems and do a deeper analysis. Sort of like our custom rebate program, this can be widely specialized or specifically specialized to the equipment that's in your facility. There's not one canned, response to the type of equipment that might be eligible for a feasibility study by nature. It's specific and it's custom to your facility. So whatever it is that you do, whether you've just got simple systems, big facility maybe with HVAC, lighting, et cetera, that's a possibility. Or if you have a custom manufacturing facility or any similar type of place, we could look at the specialty systems there as well. So energy expert that you hire could be a consultant, could be an engineer, could be a contractor. Any contractor, third-party contractor could be eligible to conduct this for you. And Alliant Energy would be involved simply to evaluate the study that they're going to do and pre-approve an incentive to help you accomplish that. So once again, to emphasize, this could be with an external consultant or contractor or engineer that you hire. And their goal is to evaluate the energy use associated with the system. That's going to include expenses, the energy usage, obviously, would likely include sub-metering of the system. If an energy audit, we talked about a level 1 and a level 2. You'd think of this really as a level 3 when we're looking at ASHRAE standards, what we consider to be a feasibility study. Of course, our end goal is to determine the cost effectiveness of whatever it is that you want to do. And that could be, obviously upgrading a line, making a new investment in a system that is of course still functioning but aging, and generally is potentially a cost center for your business. As equipment and technology evolves, our goal is to help make it as easy as possible for you to identify where you can save money. And feasibility study is a great place to do that. Just a point, the feasibility study is not intended for work that you've already done. So if you've already installed a new equipment or a new system of any kind, we are too late. It's not for post-installation studies. And then it's really not intended for widely experimental technology. We want to be able to measure and predict what the energy savings is going to be here. So if you're advancing a line or need to grow a line in a unit or in your facility, maybe your company's grown, or whatever it is that you do in your facility, you need to do more of it. This is a good opportunity for you to evaluate the equipment as you look to invest. So thinking about the process, the first step is to reach out to your key account manager to seek approval. And it's very simple. We'll just have a few questions to look at the type of equipment that you're looking at, look at a proposal from the contractor, consultant, engineer that you're working with. And then, based on that review, you'll have the green light to have your consultant, of course, conduct the study. And here's where the incentives come in. So as we're aiming to make this as easy as possible, Alliant Energy's incentive program will cover 50% of the study cost, up to $7,500, upon pre-approval of the study once the study is complete. So there's $7,500 up to $7,500, and then based on the findings of the report, once the study is complete, if you implement 75% or more of the recommendations within 18 months, Alliant Energy will cover the remaining 50% of the study cost, up to $7,500. And I want to point out, of course, there certainly may be room for additional rebates based on the actual work that's done through a custom rebate. So of course, here we're just discussing the study cost. So you're looking at there a total of up to $15,000 to pay for the feasibility study. And that hopefully then leads to upgrades, investment in your equipment, which could include custom rebate. So this is that same information really just spelled out in a different way. $15,000 in incentive to pay for the total cost, $7,500 on the front end, and then based on the investment that you make, the remaining 50%, another $7,500 on the tail end once you've completed the recommendations. So now thinking about the types of systems that might be a good fit for a feasibility study, we see a lot of feasibility studies that come in related to compressed air systems. Just really a common example. Other common examples include, of course, large HVAC systems of many different types. Might really just depends on what type of facility you have. And then, of course, looking at manufacturing systems and custom equipment there. And that really, want to emphasize, it could be anything. Motors, pumps, drives, etc. If it uses a significant amount of energy, we're interested in helping you evaluate that. As I mentioned, this could be done by the contractor or consultant or engineer of your choice. We do have general guidelines to help those folks as they do this type of analysis. I'm not going to read through this information, but I just want you to know that we have this available. And it could be, we can work with the contractor engineer to help them make sure that they're going to include the information that they need to as they work with you to conduct this feasibility study. But I'll emphasize here at the end in bold, of course, most of our customers, I think, really are generally interested in the payback associated with whatever type of investment that they need to make. If you can calculate the amount of money that you're going to be putting into this type of an investment, the energy savings associated with that, how many years is this going to take to pay itself off? And hopefully then that ties into your sustainability goals and can be a better use of your energy, and everybody wins. So I'd like to turn it over now to Peter Griffin, who can discuss an example of one of these feasibility studies that has happened in the past. So thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Nick. To give an example of these in action, we had a manufacturing facility that had 2 chilled water circuits with 3 chillers each that was used to remove heat from their manufacturing process. The customer told us that these chillers were kind of at the end of their useful life. In addition, that they use parts and refrigerants that were no longer easily accessible. So they were looking to upgrade these chillers both for their current needs and looking forward into the future expansions. So they reached out to a contractor and they performed a feasibility study. And the results of the study provided the customer with 5 different options of how to go about replacing the systems. Next slide. So the results of these studies were kind of put into two different measure packages, and these both provided the customer with energy savings of around $115,000 to $125,000 per year, and a simple payback on those energy savings of between 3.7 and 4.3 years. So, looks like a pretty good project for the customer. We were able to identify energy savings and show that it was good for their business. And in addition to that, they were able to plan for future expansions of their manufacturing process. With that, I will give it to Andrew Wiegand, who's an energy engineering lead with Michaels Energy, to talk about retro commissioning studies.
Yep, thanks, Peter. So retro commissioning, unlike feasibility study, you can use whoever you want to do the study. But retro commissioning is something that we Michaels helps run for the Alliant Energy folks. So the benefits, as shown on here, most of them are going to come down to energy savings, energy cost related measures. So we're going to focus on that and improve productivity, improve your system overall. That's a big one. Retro commissioning, by its name, is commissioning back to the beginning or back to the best you can do while we're on site. So some of these are on there. Scheduling becomes a big thing, but we'll get into that a little later. Next slide. So retro commissioning, this is how the reimbursement works for this for here versus feasibility study. Feasibility study is capped and it has similar paybacks, but for this one, we need your involvement in order to complete it. So you will have to pay up front, and that study gets fully reimbursed by the end of the report, right? So we would agree on the proposal, and then you would pay for the entire study, and then 50% gets reimbursed when we deliver the study to you, and then the other 50% when you implement a predetermined package from that study. And as it shows on here, the package is going to end up with a 2-year or less payback in that package. One measure may end up being over 2 years, but the whole package together is going to be under 2 years. And you might have one where you replace a valve or something that's going to end up being 4 years, and that gets because of the savings, that'll still be able to get put into that package. That doesn't mean that there's other things we might find during the retro commissioning study that we can just tell you about and go into other programs that Alliant has. Retro commissioning is specifically for quick payback measures, because the ones with the longer payback, more capital cost, Alliant has other programs for that, like custom rebates or midstream programs. So next slide. So who is RCX for? As it shows on here, a larger square footage. A lot of them are better off with DDC controls or direct digital controls or energy management system controls. Sometimes, what they call SCADA for process stuff will work. But what we're after is, adjustments. So most of those adjustments are able to be done on the DDC controls. So typically it's a better fit for buildings with large central systems, chiller boiler plant systems like hospitals and big plants, or maybe colleges, right, where they have DDC system and they may be low on staff to keep ahead of all these different changes for all these different systems. So that's a big part of it. As it shows on here, labs end up with odd flows and very precise flows, and you got to make sure that things happen in a certain order if you want energy savings. A lot of times that's overwritten to just all the flow so that I don't have to worry about it or get yelled at if something didn't work right. So they just pay 100% all the time. There's energy analytics is something that you may have access to. If you don't, you can ask your account manager. It's a program that Alliant runs that might show you if your demand is high for a very short period of time. That might be something that we can look into as part of RCX. And that just shows that you're getting charged for a very small period of time when you can, likely do things to reduce that. Yeah, and then there might be some projects or some changes that are better off for feasibility studies, as Nick had alluded to. So, those are ones with more capital costs involved. So this is some of our screening process, which I'll get to a little bit when I go into timelines, but to make sure that you're a good fit and we want to do this, we're going to look at your buildings versus some benchmarks, and we're going to look at the energy in a bunch of different ways, and we're going to make a judgment call on whether we think there's going to be substantial savings there for us to go after, right? We don't want you to, we do this whole thing only to find out that there's nothing there, or, you guys are already very efficient. And so we're just wasting your time and ours doing it. So we'll do some screening, and this is just what's shown on the screen is just different ways of looking at the same data that's typically on your bill. Energy Analytics has some of this. It's just, like, I can put as many colorful graphs as I can to it. Some of it will just be your input. Like, what do you think? Or the person that, knows the controls best or the HVAC best will be a lot of the input. We do work with your controls contractor to implement this. Sometimes it's stuff that's locked out for us anyway that we would need to do that. We do the study, and we tell your controls contractor we need to do X, Y, and Z, and they need to purchase a sensor for whatever, right? So next slide. All right, so this is again an example of one of many things that could go wrong and cause RCX related measures. So a lot of them, some of the bigger ones are scheduling, right? You've commissioned this building in 1999, I don't know, 2005, whatever. So it's, changed since then. Some of it's an office now, and some of it's a thing. And so schedules change, people change, airflows change, those can be good RCX measures, and usually are. Some of the stuff on the left goes out of calibration or breaks or is off. We've seen a lot of humidity sensors that go out of calibration and cause things to work harder than they need to. Some of this might just be, overworked maintenance staff that just default to the biggest, greatest, whatever, so that they don't get called on that and they can work on something else, right? If I just set it at the most extreme, I'm not going to get a headache on that, and I can work on this other thing. So that becomes part of it. Valves positions, sometimes valves fail. That could be something we find. A failed heating valve causes, extra cooling to get, because it shouldn't be running, but it's, leaked by. Sometimes that'll end up in at RCX depending on the valve. Sometimes it's capital improvements that you'll end up with either feasibility study or custom rebate, or maybe another program. Or maybe it won't, qualify. We can look into that, or at least let you know if we do find it. But any one air handling unit or chiller is going to have a bajillion different sensors, right? Any one air handling unit's got at least 4 or 5 temperature sensors and 3 dampers and a motor, maybe 2, and all of those have multiple wirings, and who knows, eventually something's going to go out of calibration. So next slide. This is the very rough RCX schedule. So when you tell us, or what you think you're a good RCX candidate, or you want us to look at it, we will look at your building and your energy usage, and it sounds trivial, but we'll give you a call and discuss this with you, because we've seen a few of them that after calling the customer and they get, they ask some other defining questions, they think, oh, well, I'm going to do this other thing instead. Right? How old is your equipment? We don't want to go and do a bunch of controls changes on your DDC equipment, knowing that it's from 1995 and runs Windows 2, and you're going to have to replace it, right? So, you don't want to spend that kind of money if you're going to have to upgrade that in the very near future. So some of those vetting things will get asked, and that's usually a very short, window of time. You ask to the call is probably a week or 2. Right, so we can do some of it. And then proposal is where we do all those fancy charts and graphs so we can come up with what we think will be the savings that you'll acquire, right? So we think, given other similar buildings and what you got and some of this other stuff, that we can it'll cost you this much for the study. It all gets reimbursed, but upfront it'll cost you this much for the study. And we think we'll have this much savings because of these X and Y. And then, so you would sign off on the study. We would do the study, which is step 3. We deliver the study, you get 50% of your cost back. Then we work with your controls contractor to implement all the agreed to package, right, for the 2-year package. And it says up to 18 months, which sounds long, but that's sometimes valves or sensors need to be ordered to get things working correctly, right? So in those extreme cases, it might take a while for us to get those things implemented and do the functional performance testing. So we're coming on site with your controls contractor to make sure everything got put in correctly, right? And then when we do that on site, after that, you get the extra or the remaining, 50% reimbursed. And then your study is reimbursed, but we're still going to have to do our due diligence with Alliant to show that this is still saving, right? So we're going to do some regression analysis and some other analysis and maybe some metering to make sure that all the savings are still there, that things didn't go awry. So that's why it says periodically up to a full year as step 7. So that's us doing some measurements. Next slide. And then I'm going to pass it back to Peter for this example.
Thanks, Andrew. A good example of this retro commissioning study in action is we had a customer who built a new 200,000 square foot light manufacturing and office facility. Even though this facility was only a couple years old and used new high efficiency equipment, we were still able to find some improvements for this customer. For example, their lighting levels in the facility were found to exceed the ASHRAE standards for the spaces, so the customer was able to dim those lights a bit and save some energy with no impact to user comfort or productivity. We also found that there was room for improving their economizer settings for their chillers and rooftop units to take advantage of free cooling. And finally, we recommended that the time and temperature setbacks for the offices were adjusted to match the occupancy for that office, since the manufacturing facility was running more hours than the office part, but the offices were on that same schedule. So with that, I'll pass it back to Mike Wagner, who will handle any Q&A we've got.
Hey guys, thanks for some really great information. If you have any questions, go to that lower right corner of your screen. There's a chat window. You can pop it up and put some questions in. We'll try to see if we can get those answers, in the next half hour or so. Peter, just real quick, we were talking about that retro commissioning customer. Were they surprised? I mean, this building was 2 years old. Were they kind of surprised at kind of the savings that was available with these changes, given the fact that they had just built this building and put it into service?
I would say they were pleasantly surprised that we're able to recommend some measures. I think you see this commonly in new construction, that the original contractors may set it to assumed occupancy and loads, but you find out once you get people in the facility that those differ from the designed assumptions. The other thing the customer was pleased about was that they have facilities like this across the United States, and they're able to take some of these suggestions and use those as a base to look at improvements for their other similar facilities.
Yeah, this just reminds me of moving into my house, and the thermostat was set based on the previous homeowner's schedule. And we had to do everything we could to reprogram it. And I think that's kind of a lot of that there, where you get going and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, what are we doing with this site? Andrew, when we were talking about retro commissioning, I think this is a good way to look at how do we work on doing some kind of reset on a piece of equipment, but also working to trying to make that piece of equipment more energy efficient, even though there's a whole lot of other equipment that interacts with that or works together. I mean, it's kind of like being able to hit Control Alt Delete, but also not being able to mess with everything else at the same time.
Yeah, as part of this, we were going to come on site and meter things, right? Because we don't want to come on site for an hour and make assumptions as to operations during the night or the middle of the night, right? Occupancy or whatever. So we we meter and we figure out temperatures, and we use typical, there's some typical strategies in there or publicly available to people, and we use those as guidance. And it doesn't normally, or I guess on average it may normally go with that, but it'll have some adjustments, right? Like, oh, we don't want to go down that far. But we use those as guides, and we use the meter data to show, like, oh yeah, this would be the time when you would switch temperatures and reset temperatures or change scheduling or change damper positions. So we use that along with, like I said, some guidance and some knowledge that people at Michael's have just for doing a bunch of these. Like, oh, this will work. In fact, we just had one where I was telling a hospital they could change a temperature. Now, they need very precise, right? For some of they need very precise humidity and temperature stuff. So we can show them, like, this is why you can change it, right? Here's some of the set points that are required by some whatever code. Here's why you could change it for this code. So this is legal. This isn't, you're not going to be out this. You're not going to be yelled at because you've changed it.
And I think too about all the work that everybody has to do and all the time they have to get it done. Can you guys address, if I'm the factory owner, the building owner, the customer, and I'm looking at using these programs, how much of my time is going to be involved in working with you to get these savings? Is it going to be a really big draw on my time, or is it just kind of like, we start big at the beginning and we pick up at the end?
Sorry, I saw a question come up in the chat, but I'll get to yours first. So time-wise, like we're doing a lot of the work. We do need your time or somebody that knowledgeable, right, about the equipment, where things are at, assign us into controls. We also need to talk with your controls contractor, or at least have a contract or like touch base with them for the recommended measures, right? So it'll be a little, the day we're on site doing all this work, you need some help, depending on how much guidance we need, or if we have to be, somebody have to follow us around the whole time, or can we just go around by ourselves? But we'll need, a few hours of your time that one day of on site. Then, the report out's going to be a little while. We want to make sure that you're good with the package as it was shown or implemented, right? So, we don't want any surprises when we start doing it. Like, why are you doing that? Well, it was in the package. So we were hoping that everybody's on the same page there. So we have a report out and make sure everybody's on the same page. And then the functional performance testing is typically just us and your controls contractor. So not your time or your maintenance staff time. So that's a lot of the time and effort on your part would be that, some of the setup stuff for documents and signing off on the audit, and then the one day of on-site, and then the report out. Most of the rest is us and your controls contractor. So I don't know if you want me to go to the question, or I don't know.
Sure, go for it. Yeah, in your experience on retro commissioning, have you suggested design changes in that case? Is this follow a feasibility study or remain under the RCX?
So it depends on how much cost is involved and how big the design change is. So if it's change a pipe, cross connect, you got to put a pipe in and you'll get decent savings. We'd put it in the RCX. Again, we this aren't going to be surprise measures. We would show this to you and say this is going to be slightly, we got to put in a pipe and a few valves to cross connect X or Y. There's some things that most of the time that's going to be feasibility study or custom rebate if you know what the change is going to be, right? We can put it in the RCX report and say these are capital measures, like, this didn't fit in the package. It doesn't mean we are going to ignore it. We put it into the capital measures if we see it, right? Because there's even some things that we'll go through and think that this will work under the 2-year package, and we use your controls contractor and they say, no, the valve or the thing is going to cost 3 times what you think. And so that becomes a capital measure and it comes out of that package, but it's still in the report. We don't want to ignore it because there's still energy savings and such there. So it may end up in the report. It would qualify for other rebates and programs for Alliant. It could be feasibility study if you wanted to study it more. We may, just tell you that this, you would need a new pump in order to hit the pressure that you need there. So we're not gonna put it in that, but we'll, if you want to use feasibility study, feel free. If you want to use us for feasibility study, you can, but feasibility study is open to anybody. So if you want to use somebody else to do that, feel free as well.
Ron is asking, how do you determine or the ROI and what follow-up is done after your recommendations are done? Do you complete a follow-up verification for the savings? How does that work? So ROI and savings.
So we do, it's easiest to do for simple payback. Everybody knows it, it's ubiquitous, and everybody can follow it. We do life cycle costs for some of the feasibility study and retro commissioning if you want, if you need that, or if that's part of your qualifying for a measure, right? You have to tell your boss it has some kind of life cycle cost or something else metric wise for cost. We can put that, most of that we have built in, we can put that in the report. For follow-ups, we do the functional performance testing when it's implemented. So we're going there with your contractor and we're kind of, putting fake loads and things to see how things react, right? It's mostly all on the controls, and we're putting set points in there, changing set points, and make sure that this follows what we suggested in the report, right? And then the bill monitoring we do, because it's a requirement of running this with Alliant. We're gonna do some regression analysis, and that means given the way you were running up to when we started this, we assume that this would follow the same energy trend as we go through the next year. But because of the changes in some of the set points, we might be able to follow that. The differences between what was expected and where you're actually at, we can measure. Also, most DDC systems have trending available inside themselves, and if we can get that, we can prove, yes, this is still working and the savings are still there. So I hope I answered the question.
Well, that sounds great. Nick, if I'm a customer and I'm looking at feasibility studies or a retro commissioning study, how do I get started? Do I just go to the website? Do I fill out a form? Do I get in touch with my key account manager? What's the best way to get the ball rolling if this is something I'm interested in?
Great question. Yeah, best step is to always first have a conversation with your key account manager. They will provide you, first they'll help steer you in the right direction, depending on what it is that you're hoping to accomplish, lead you to the initiating step. And that could be, a form, a pre-approval form, likely, for a feasibility study. And then we get you in contact with Michael's Energy, potentially for a retro commissioning study. So yeah, your CAM is your key account manager is one-stop shop. They're your best resource and best person to get hold of.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, hey, gents, want to thank you a lot. Lots of good information and lots of great questions from our group today. Hopefully, folks are starting to get a better picture of how these programs can fit into their energy efficiency plans. Oh, look at Ron there, kind of sneaking one in on us. He wants to know what the results are. Can you guys give that a read and tell us what your thoughts are on that? Or maybe if you think that is something where maybe you might want to need a one-on-one conversation with him afterward.
I don't know if you're meaning this. I'll start this, and maybe if not, then my contact information is on here. We can talk about it later. But screening wise, we're going to say, given what your building is and how it's being used, and benchmarking versus similar buildings, we think that the study would achieve some number, right? I'm throwing out 200,000 just as a number, right? So we're going into it thinking we'll have those savings. Like if it gets too small, we say this may not be worth your time and ours. But hopefully, if we think it's a good thing, we would go through with it. Sometimes, as Nick alluded to, if you're unsure, it might be best to do an audit, and that way somebody from Michael's or somebody from another can take a look at this and give a better opinion of that savings, right? So we think it's 200,000. We go through and we try and we find that package, right? And we implement the package and it says 2 years, and we put in, the controls to hit the package and everything's working like it should, then the bills should show some of the savings and, through the metering or whatever. You guys, the customer may change something internally and add a building or add some huge pump or whatever. But we're hoping that, the regression and some of the metering and monitoring we're doing will still prove that savings. So if that doesn't answer it, just please feel free to reach out separately. But I hope I at least ping part of it.
Yeah, Ron, why don't we try to see if we can have your key account manager get in touch with you too, just to
Sure.
kind of make sure we've answered all your questions today. And definitely put you in touch with the talented Andrew Wiegand to help you find those answers you need. As I said, look for a follow-up email with a link to a recording of today's presentation. You want to go back and kind of watch it again, or maybe you've got somebody in your facility, that you want to share it with to say, hey, we should, really consider that. We'll also have some links to some more information about these programs. Also, we really want to get your ideas about things that are important to you for energy efficiency. So drop ideas for future webinars into the brief survey that will pop up when you're done. And we'll thank you in advance for filling out these very few 5 brief questions. So on behalf of Alliant Energy, we want to thank you for joining us. Please continue to work safely and have a great rest of the day. Thanks for being with us.